Okay, here we go. Please welcome.
We're going to do the thing again?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Is it Frizzell or Frizzle?
It's Frizzell.
Frizzell, yeah.
Frizzell. Okay, I was making
Come
sure.
on.
Yeah.
Danny.
I would think you guys would be better at this by now.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Choir Guys podcast, brought to you by Endeavor Music Publishing. My name is Blake Richter.
And I'm Danny Gutierrez.
Danny, we're about a month into summer.
Ugh.
We've been living it up. What have you been up to?
Well, a lot of just traveling back and forth, doing some things, but I just got out of, I just did a camp, an a cappella camp for the Youth Course Kansas City last week. It was super fun, about like 30 kids involved, and we did a lot of fun music. How about you, Blake?
Well, I feel like that's a great segue into our guest today.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
I think one of the coolest parts about that camp was that one of our previous students, we can say his name now because he's graduated, Gavin Collins, Gavin the VP on all socials. He got to lead like a VP intensive something or other, right? What did he do?
Yeah, basically, it was actually just a way of teaching students how to beatbox from scratch, like the basics, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat.
And if there's anybody to do it, he's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Yes, all the patience in the world, so it was fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this summer I've just been, we have a 9-month-old, and so she's almost 10 months in the next few days or so. And she's in that fast-crawling phase. She's pulling up on everything. She's starting to walk with the walker, so I'm just chasing her around nonstop, which is exhausting, but super fun. You got to hang out with her the other night, and you got to play with her on the ground and all that stuff. So thanks for being, Uncle Danny.
Oh, she's super easy to be Uncle Danny too.
Yeah. And then we had an NBA Finals watch party the other night with all of our civilized choral gentlemen's NBA group chat boys.
We're taking applications for next year if you
Yes.
are super into the NBA specifically, and you are a choir director, and you're a real fan. I know it's like a very prestigious elite group. Not really. But if you want to be in the group, you just have to really like the NBA.
You can send in an application, and by that you can reach out to Danny.
If you're a Knicks fan, that's automatically in because I need help.
That's debatable. Also, you were rooting for the Pacers in the finals. Has there ever been a Knicks fan ever root for the Pacers?
When one of your friends is an obnoxious OKC fan and you want them to lose, sure.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. We even had shout out to Cage Edgar. He drove just for the game. He drove from Kansas City to come watch it in the Springfield area, which was amazing.
It's commitment.
It's
a commitment.
Yep. Well, we have a great episode in store for you today. We get to welcome our first two-timer to the podcast.
That's right. Someone wanted to come back to our podcast. Can you believe that, Blake?
I can't. I think this means we've made it, This guest joined us on episode 7 of season 1 last May in 2024. So make sure to check out that episode before you listen to this episode.
We learned so much from that guest last year, and we thought we could benefit from another episode from him. So he's the director of fine arts and director of vocal music at Briarcrest Christian School in Memphis, Tennessee, as well as the co-founder and president of the Cappella Education Association.
Ooh, you may have heard of his high school a cappella group, One Voice, who are contestants on America's Got Talent, performers at the Emmys, and collaborators with Foreigner and the Swingles. Their music has been streamed, downloaded, and viewed over 120 million times. Can you imagine, as a high school student, having that street cred around your school, around your town? You're like, yeah, I'm on.
That's pretty cool.
I've been streamed that many times. Our guest also co-authored the books Acapella Warm-Ups for Pop and Jazz Choirs and Teaching Music Through Performance in Contemporary Acapella. Please welcome J.D. Frizzell! You're back. You are back.
I'm back. Hey, guys.
Back and better than ever.
Better than ever.
Well rested.
That's an ironic statement.
Well,
is there a reason why that's an ironic statement?
No, the first question is, so you've had a pretty life-changing past month. Can you tell us what's new and exciting in your life nowadays?
In addition to our two amazing boys, we now have a baby girl. She is
Woo!
she's almost 4 weeks old,
Hmm.
and all parents understand that phase of life. So we're very happy and very tired.
Yeah, how many hours of sleep did you get last night?
I don't know. It's a great question.
I feel that. I feel
Wow.
that. Our almost 10-month-old decided to, have some teething issues at about midnight last night, but she went back to sleep pretty quick.
Does she sleep pretty well through the night?
Oh yeah, she usually sleeps 10 to 12 hours, which is
She is
beautiful.
so sweet.
She's the best.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it.
Can I sleep 10 to 12 hours a night?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I wish I could. But yeah, so congratulations. Anything else you want to tell us about your wonderful daughter?
Her name is Eslyn Rose Frizzell, and she's beautiful and perfect and amazing, and that's all. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Yay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So last time you were on our podcast, you talked about preparing for your Carnegie Hall performance, and that has happened. I've seen pictures on Facebook, and it looked incredible. Can you just kind of recap that entire experience and how that was for you to premiere a work of yours in Carnegie Hall?
Yeah, so I partnered with National Concerts. Matt Workman really understood the artistic vision that I had for this. We went out and did a poetry contest, a national poetry contest, because it was important to me that the words of this major work connected with the generations that would be singing it, the generation
Mm,
of students that would be singing it. So Gen Z. And we had two winners of the poetry contest, Tamia Elliott and Ava Pardue. They're both 19, 20 years old, depending on their birthdays now. And they wrote those poems when they were 18. And it's just amazing, powerful poetry. And so it really helped to propel the music forward and to connect with the students who were coming to Carnegie to sing. So we started it off by doing that. And then those poets came to New York and they read their poems before each movement on the stage of Carnegie Hall, sort of a
that's awesome.
dramatic reading.
Yeah.
And that was really powerful, very cool. And they got to speak with the singers, in rehearsals about the meaning of it and connection and everything.
Wow.
And we did the Carnegie thing. We rehearsed for a few days, performed on stage, had some really cool art that was commissioned for the piece, for each movement that kind of went behind. So that was a really cool, like, 3D multimedia experience. The orchestra was phenomenal. It was just a really, really, it's one of those few mountaintop experiences I think as choral musicians we have. It's things like an ACDA performance or something like this where if you can stop and glimmer for just a moment, which I was able to do a few different times, you realize, like, wow, like this doesn't happen often, if ever. And I was just so grateful to be able to be a part of it and to experience it and to have all of those students experience it. And what was so wild to me is, I mean, I've done, I don't know, 5 or 6 of those Carnegie gigs over the course of my career, a lot of them as singers in the choir. And I mean, I've done a few where, like, you're in Carnegie Hall and you look out and there are a smattering of people. I mean, it seats like 2,200 people or something. And you look out and there are a few hundred. That was not the case. The wildest part to me was, like, I walked out onto the stage, and there was a whole thing before. Jeff Redding had just performed wonderfully with his choir from UCF, and I was standing backstage, like, pacing, and they open the door and you walk out and it's like go time, right?
Hmm.
And it's packed. I mean, standing room only. And I was like, okay, well, don't screw up, Frizzell. Yeah, right? Like, yeah, but that was just so magical, and hope to do it again soon. Really hoping that I can get this major work out to a lot of schools this year. That was really the goal. Like, Carnegie was the launching point for that, but I very specifically composed the work to be accessible for the average high school choir. The ranges are limited. The difficulty really comes from the the orchestra and the combination of the voicings. Everything is really like stepwise. All of the cool like polychordal moments and stuff happen because of the voice leading, not because suddenly you need to find like 10 part divisi within your high school choir. And I was just very like from a compositional perspective, I tried to make myself be really disciplined as I was writing. I didn't let myself divide it all beyond SSA, TBB at any point, and so I think that helps me be more creative. And so ultimately, we have this piece that I want a lot of choirs to put their hands on and experience the words, the message of it, and I think it's really salient to our students that we all teach, which is like, hey, you are the only you in the entire universe. Stop trying to be somebody else. Stop trying to look on Instagram and see somebody that's smarter and faster and more athletic and prettier and stronger and whatever else. Like, celebrate being you. And that's what the whole piece is about. I feel like that's a universal message that it's not political, it's not controversial. It's just, I think, something that all of our students need to hear. And so I'm going to be pushing this out there. We did as well, Johnny Del Toro, who has been my longtime orchestration partner. We made this virtual orchestration. So it's not just like, hey, here's a track to play to do it with your choir. There's a click that goes with it,
Mm.
and you put one ear in, and there are cues and stuff like that so that you can facilitate a performance because I mean realistically not a lot of high school choirs have like a symphony orchestra that they can play along with. And
What?
so we wanted kids to be able to I know, right? To be able to still have that sonic experience. And so we created that sort of virtual orchestra experience as well with it. So anyways, that was the Carnegie Hall thing. The piece is called You Are. And man, I hope people can check it out. It's pretty sweet.
So is it in the works of being published, or is it already out there? Or
Yeah, it is on my website. It is going up this summer. I've had like some stuff going on that has just kept me from getting to it over the past month or so.
what?
But yes, my summer goal is to get it all up. I I have a lot of pieces with publishers, and it's been wonderful relationships, but pretty much from like the last 4 or 5 years, really COVID on, I just made the choice to start publishing everything myself.
Yeah.
What is the rationale behind that?
A few reasons. First one and foremost, I think, is that I just want to own my IP.
Yeah.
Like, um, there are a few pieces from early on in my career that are published and were just really never promoted. And once you get past that first cycle of promotion, unless it starts to get on like circuits with honor choirs or certain conductors or whatever, I mean, it really doesn't, most pieces don't have legs beyond that. And it's a really oversaturated market, the choral music market in general. And so that's reason number one. Reason number two is that I like to have a relationship with the people who do my music. I like to have a connection with them. I like them to know where I am and who I am, and that I'm a real person, and that I'm a dad, and that I'm a teacher, and that like I want their feedback and I want to answer questions that they have. And so selling it through my own website allows me to sort of foster those relationships with them. I've just since COVID, like I did a lot of those sort of online focused lessons and pieces and virtual choirs and things like that. And I mean, hundreds and hundreds of choir directors became, I guess, clients of mine during that time. And it was such a powerful connection that I had never had before at scale to people that were performing my music. And so I didn't want to lose that anymore. And I guess the third one, if we're being like totally transparent, is that the
I was
finances
gonna say you can
just
make more
work
money.
out. It just works out better. I mean, I've I've built up a client list, a customer list. Um, and I mean, it's not a list. I mean, these are people that most of them I know, but I mean, we're talking about like about 2,000 choir directors, and so that's a community that I can foster, connections within and relationships with, and also just like the math's that way. Like as a composer, I mean, I don't think there are very few composers who are doing it full time. Those who publish, I mean, they're having to put out a piece a week, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, you guys know as teachers, I mean, we don't have that. Teachers, parents, whatever, we don't have time. I don't have time to do that and do everything else in my life. So I can write when I want to write or need to write. And then you can sell, I don't know, 10, 20 choirs can purchase a piece and I make more money than if 500 choirs purchase a piece that has like a 5% royalty on it. So, I mean, that's just the macroeconomics of the market. And I'm sure you've had other guests on the podcast talk about that too. I think the publishers still play a really important role. And like I said, I still have, I think, really great relationships with a lot of publishers. When you're trying to make a name for yourself, if you don't have a following, if you don't have people who know who you are as a composer, you need a publisher. You need somebody to put your music out there and put it in the JW Pepper catalogs and get it out on demos and, whatever, get in front of people, to let them know who you are. But that's basically why.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
All right, so we're going to get into some technical questions for you, JD.
Ooh.
One of the reasons why we wanted you back, we wanted to explore your brain.
Uh-oh.
When you coach a pop a cappella group, what are some colors that are like non-negotiable for you? You want to hear these elements there. And do they differ from, let's say, like the classical default that most of us are trained with? So what type of colors are you looking for in a contemporary a cappella, pop a cappella ensemble?
Okay, so we're talking about tone, right? Like
Yes.
placement.
We
Like,
talk
okay.
about tone.
Yeah, we're talking about tone. So in general, for a pop a cappella group, it's a lot like, okay, follow me here. It's a lot like Baroque music. You have to have transparency of texture. We have to be able to hear everything that's going on. And so that means that you have to be really specific about what tone is being created at each level. Okay, so transparency level. Follow me here. So, for example, I usually only have one first soprano, or if it's a TTBB group, one first tenor, maybe two. Why? Because that is always going to stick out of the texture. We're always going to hear that because of the register and because we hear higher pitches as being louder, even though they're not. So like we're going to always have that as being one to a part. And what that means is that person, let's say it's a soprano, if they have to sing something that's high and floaty that goes up above everything, I'm going to have that singer take a very light European, sort of middle coordinated tone, right? To sing that. Maybe even a little bit back, a little bit covered, a little bit more of a rounded vowel shape. But let's say you that voice is down an octave and it's a pop piece that's really contemporary sounding. Everybody's in their chest voice or in a chest voice range. That soprano part is going to be singing really forward. They're going to be singing in all these forward resonating areas. Their larynx is going to be higher than it would be for bel canto singing. And that is what I'd be looking for there. I'm using this example and I can extrapolate others from it, but if it's okay, I'll just dig in on this one. So that same soprano part, two different styles, two different types of tone that they're going to be creating based on the need of the piece. The mistake that people will make on that is they'll be like, okay, the soprano part, I've got, three soprano ones in my group. All three soprano ones are going to sing that part. Well, on either one of those situations, that could go very poorly. If you have the part that's way up high and goes above the staff, a lot of times what I'll hear when I sing with groups, or I work with groups, you have three singers who all go up to that and they try to sing it in like a very forward poppy place. And that doesn't work, right? we know from choral work that it's challenging above the staff to get sopranos to be able to blend, and tune together. So that often doesn't work either. If you take them down an octave and you're in that chest voice range, what happens is, especially around the break, you'll have a couple singers who have chosen to flip up into head voice. And so they'll be singing something with a way farther back placement and a way woofier tone. And then you might have one singer whose range just allows them, like maybe it's a half, their break is a half step or a whole step higher. They don't need to go to that place. And so they stay in that larynx higher, forward resonators more active place. And it sounds terrible with those
Hmm.
combination of tones together.
Hmm.
Right. So every there are so many examples like that in every pop piece that I teach with like one voice, for example. And you have to decide on the front end how you're going to solve each tonal issue. Like
Hmm.
what do you need each layer to sound like, and what do you need it to do? For me, I think pop music is really mid heavy. Like when I listen to pop music on my car stereo, I find myself like adjusting the EQs towards to the middle, like pretty flat. And if I boost anything, it'll be the mid-range stuff. But even the arrangements, even if you just look at a spectrum analysis of like what pitches are playing where, what frequencies are active in a pop mix on the radio or on Spotify, it's middle stuff. There's not a ton that's up high. You've got a big open space, and then you've got bass, and if you've got your subwoofer, right, everything happens down there. So for me, pop music for a cappella, people expect to hear the same thing. Their ears are so well trained to produce pop music that they've heard on the radio, that is what they need. And so again, you're gonna try to get the tone to be warmer in the middle. I also like will voice up in the middle. So if you look at like a one voice chart, there are a lot of middle voice people. There are a lot of soprano alto voices that are singing in a really comfortable register. In fact, before I do any arrangements, I create a voicing chart for the group that not only has like a description of their tone and a recording of them singing different parts, different registers, but it has like where their extreme low is and their extreme high, and then where is their comfortable, consistent chest voice range. Because for the most part, pop music is chest voice singing. And most choir directors have been undertrained in how to teach chest voice singing, or especially chest voice pop singing.
Yeah.
And it's just, there are just a few things that are different from that and bel canto singing, which I would say is like the default for most of us. That's probably how most of us were taught in our voice lessons in college, in high school, whatever. And so, yeah, you've got to understand the needs of the piece. You've got to then voice the piece successfully to set your singers up to sound the way that you want. And then it's a matter of just like everything else in choir, right? We are voice teachers. We are voice teachers at every moment of every day, and we have to approach the rehearsal in that way. So, um, yeah, did I answer the question? Sort of. I know I used one example and sort of dug in on it. I'm happy to.
That's
Ex-
great. Those are great points all around. And I think you bring up a great point with a lot of directors not quite being trained to kind of get to different aspects of the voice that we might not readily use in a choral classroom. I know for myself, I would say, see, it's interesting. So for my own, like, let's say just chorally, my desire for my students is a very mixed registration. It just depends on where you are in your voice. Sometimes you need more chest, sometimes you need more head voice. And I say to my students often, we don't really use much air when we sing. I know it's contrary because a lot of directors will say, use more air, use more air. I tell the students, use no air, use as little air as possible. We're going to go for all chord closure, all sound all the time, which can get tricky for contemporary a cappella. So one of the struggles I've had is so my students, I would say, sing with very, I would say, with a lot of resonance, right? What I've come to understand is that you put a lot of resonance on a mic and amp that up, that can get a bit overwhelming for the listener, and it can get a bit tricky to tune. And it's interesting because, like with my contemporary pop acapella group, you take the mics away, they sing like gods. They sing like singing gods. Like they can do anything. They can do all these charts, and it sounds immaculate. You put those mics on them, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds messy, and it sounds not in tune, and it sounds very disjunct. And it's always hard for me to try to bridge the gap on what needs to happen. What I've realized is that there's other extended techniques that kind of need to be used. For instance, the use of breath. Like, I feel it is acceptable in pop music to let some air escape from the chords within the style. And in actuality, sometimes it's easier to tune that way too. What are your thoughts on that, JD?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I had like a recording session or a live session of One Voice I could pull up and listen to like individual singers. I think you would find that you'd hear a lot more air than you would in like those same singers singing in a choral setting. So I think you're spot on with that idea. One thing to consider with microphones is that the singers, I think, are singing the same thing when they're singing into the microphones, but we're just hearing more of it.
Mhm.
We're hearing more of the frequencies. We're hearing more of the voice. I mean, it's taking it can pick up more than our ears can hear, and the room acts as like a natural EQ, right?
Yeah.
When we don't have the microphones, we don't get that full spectrum. We don't get all of the layers and all of the tone from the voice. So it's nice. It like sort of mixes it for us. It's like somebody sitting there doing this for our ears. And that was something that I experienced for years and years and years. I would get on mics and I would complain to every acapella person that would listen to me because I didn't know what I was doing, and it was a very different age for acapella. I was like, dude, why do we sound so bad on mics? Like, I promise we know how to sing. And at some point, um, there was a guy, and I'll leave him unnamed, really kind but very direct. He looked at me and he goes, "Well, dude, that's what they sound like." I was like, "Okay, right." How do we make it sound better though? And I think breath is part of it. Finding a place for each singer to sing at maybe 70, 80% of volume, I think is really important. So like when I say that every singer is going to be in a comfortable register, that doesn't happen in choral music, right? Like singers are going to be stretched, and part of it is like on purpose. We want to challenge our singers to have to explore the edges of their range and to explore their upper register and their lower register. Um, in pop music, unless that's your only teaching avenue for teaching voice, to me, that's what the choral classroom is for, and I can teach that a lot more effectively there. In a pop ensemble, to me, it's a performance ensemble, and so yes, while I do teach a lot of technique, it's a different type of technique, and I'm really teaching chest voice belt technique. So I would like to keep everybody in that middle range, and if they're in that middle range, they can sing with like the gas a little bit, like the pedal pulled up a little bit, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
From a purely technical perspective, it means that our larynx is higher. It means that our resonance is just going to be a little bit more like this, but it's not going to be like this, and it's not going to be loud, right? It's going to be forward, and I'm going to keep the forward placement like I'm talking right now, and I'm still using a little bit more of this, but I've pulled it back to like 60, 70% of my volume. And so what that means is I have a lot of control. I mean, you have to have so much control over pitch, especially when you're singing like one, two to a part, and you're singing in chest voice, and you're really, I mean, chest voice singing on a microphone, as I think this is what you're saying, right? There's nowhere to hide. The tiniest thing that's off, and you're like, ooh, that's rough, right? Most a cappella groups on microphone sound worse than they do off mic. Period. Like I've probably heard 1,000 of them, and it's the same for every single group. So I think that's a lot of what's happening. So my suggestion, like if I were to come work with your group, which I would love to do sometime, they're fantastic, is I would have them experiment with some placement exercises, and I would then apply some of those placement combinations to your songs. I think we could pull back the volume about 20, 30, 40%. Make sure that the register is appropriate for each singer. Like do a an individual one singer at a time test on certain parts of the song, especially if there are certain parts of the song that aren't tuning or aren't sounding as good as we want them to. And then I think a combination of those things would fix 95% of the problems on mic.
Okay, so a lot of it would have to do with taking pressure off the chords, is what that comes
Right.
down to. So that when you're singing, let's say in a more classical style, there's a lot of efficiency happening with the chord, and when you're singing efficiently, you're producing a lot of sound, and sometimes that sound, especially on a mic, can be a little bit probably overamped, let's say, and create some issues because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're gonna sing into a microphone period with other people, and especially if you're gonna be on the same part, and it's gonna be amplified and it's gonna be loud, if you sing with full pressure, right? I mean, if you're singing all out 100% efficiency or as close to it you can, I mean, you better be as in tune as the Bulgarian, you know, women's choir. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to sing so in tune, and I think that's really challenging for anyone. So pulling the pressure back, right? And for students, I mean, you explain it, sure, like here's how this works. Like I'm sure I know like your choir and the level of excellence that all of both of your choirs achieve. I know you teach the voice on a daily basis. So you can teach the hows and the whys and then have them just pull that back. And I bet you that that lowered pressure combined with ensuring that the registers are in a range where they can really control pitch will make a huge difference. If you record them, something you might try, if you record them live, like hook them up to a multi-track as you have them on the mics, and then just play back the raw individual files, you will hear a lot. It's very eye-opening, and you'll be like, "Oh wow, that's there's more pitch discrepancy than I thought." And because of the chorus effect, and because room acts as a buffer and an EQ and a mixer all in one, we don't hear those pitch discrepancies either. And so, like, if you record an a cappella group, like in a studio, have you done that? Like, where you do like one singer at a time and you record their part?
Just recently, actually, yes.
Okay. So, like, when you're in that situation, right? Now you can obviously like you can melodyne and fix things, right? But there's a cost of artificacy if you have to do too much of that. So you're trying to get each take to be energetic and emotional and interesting and as in tune as possible. And those things are really hard. I mean, what was your experience like as you were, did anything surprise you or stand out to you as you took your singers through that process for the first time?
I think I just noticed discrepancies in the voices, that they're just the different timbre and the different sometimes variations on pitch that I might have not have realized otherwise. I would say were the biggest eye-opening things.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And that would be that's what I still hear. Like and one of the things that I do in my process that has helped um sort of not fix that, but just be more aware of that early on in the learning process is so in my 5 steps, step 2, so step 1 is learning the notes and rhythms individually, and then step 2 is applying macro level elements, so like crescendo, breathe here, you know, add this sforzando here, whatever. And then they have to record themselves all the way through the song and send it to me. And then I give them verbal and written feedback on it. So it does two things. The first thing it does, and I would say most of the impact here, is that for the singer, it makes them learn the music so well that they can actually sing it straight through without stopping or making a mistake, and that's very hard. For most of them, that is just pushing them to a level of knowledge and I don't know, efficacy that they haven't probably ever had, like a level of individual responsibility that they probably have never had. Like in a choir, you can miss a note or two or three here and there, and no one would ever be the wiser for it. So it really propels them to a new level of responsibility. The other part too is for me as the director, I hear early on, first piece or two that we do that process for the year, I'm like, okay, wow, these people have very different placement here. I should not have them on this part together. That is not going to be a good combination for the rest of the year. And so sometimes I'll go back and change it, be like, hey, I'm sorry, I know you learned this whole part. Can you please learn a different part? You know, they'll roll their eyes, but they'll do it anyways. So you learn a lot about what combinations of tones work, and then I can give feedback and I can sort of like guide them through some mini voice lessons of what they need to do. And hey, I heard you struggling right here on your break. If we just widen this vowel a little bit and move a little bit more forward, I bet you can sing that without cracking. Let's try it, you know, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So that has eliminated most, if not all, of the issues that I've had in the studio like that, which is important for me because when we go in the studio, we have a few days, I'm tracking, and we're doing the whole album like straight through. And so we really don't have time to adjust anything. It's like, no, we just need to capture what we have practiced
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
not have to fix.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about let's get even more into the technical weeds. So let's say sometimes students need a more nasality, let's say, in the sound, more of that nasal ping in the sound. When is it healthy pop style, and when is it a technical red flag for you?
Mm. Like if I'm hearing someone do it,
Yeah,
like
like
what
for
do I
instance,
hear? Yeah.
sometimes that's what the song calls for, right? If it's a certain range and a certain voice, it needs a little bit more of that, a little more twang, a little more like almost it sounds like nasality. Really, is just functioning of the chords and tilting of the larynx, but it sounds like a more of a nasal sound. When can you tell? But sometimes I'll hear it so much, and I'm like, there's something not healthy about the sound. When is that line for you?
So, I mean, it depends on each singer. Um, it's sort of like one of those things you develop, like there's an ear for it. If you're just listening and not watching, the things that I would notice would I would hear sort of an overexertion. You would hear um, like strain in the voice. If you're watching them, you can see it. I mean, that I think it's way easier if you're just looking at them. But if I'm just listening to a recording, right, like I can hear when the voice sounds overextended. I can hear when there's too much, like the combination of too much pressure and then probably inappropriate laryngeal position. That's the most common thing that I see. So singers will try to take their voice that they've sung with forever, low, mid or lower larynx position, really efficient closure of the vocal folds, and they go full out on that, right? And they take that to a really high place in the register. That ends up sounding really strained. So from a technical perspective, most of the time, if we just raise the larynx, that often fixes the problem. The raising of the larynx, and then sometimes also just like using a raised cheekbone in combination, or some like I'll do like nya or nya when I'm coaching a solo that's in a really high belt place because it creates an efficiency of sound without increasing the pressure so much that it's straining the voice. Um, and so like the ñ being a voiced consonant followed by the y raises the soft palate, the n and the y together. So like soft palate up, laryngeal position up, position forward is a really healthy and efficient place to sing. But it's usually one of those things that is out of place when I hear somebody that's straining and that just doesn't quite sound good. One of those things is not happening. With high school singers, because they emulate so much, what I find that is happening most of the time is that the soft palate is not fully raised, um, or usually both. The larynx is not raised, so it's like two things that are happening together, and with those two things together, it's like kind of painful. So usually a pretty easy fix. If I have like 5 or 10 minutes with an individual singer who's singing pop and they have a decent amount of ability already, yeah, we can fix that problem. But a lot of teachers, they don't know what to do in that scenario, and so they'll have singers that are singing, belting, whatever, and they're like, ah, that's just, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy to belt. I mean, that's where that I think that misnomer comes
Sure.
from.
And the
It's
truth is,
like,
it can be unhealthy to belt,
Yeah.
right? Like I could see a lot of people belting in an extremely unhealthy manner because there's a lot happening in your vocal folds, and it's a lot of pressure involved, and if it's not done the right way, like it's not an easy thing to do. I don't think it's, or maybe it is. I don't know. Like a lot of people just sing along with that happens sometimes. I'll hear someone sing along with the radio and I'll be like, oh, that's a really healthy sound. But when I say, all right, sing pop, won't sound very healthy. But when they're just chilling, kind of doing things naturally, it works, you know?
and that's where I think, again, our job as the directors is to empower them with the knowledge base of like how their voice works, what it is that they're doing, what are the different parts of the sound creation mechanism that we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not just that immediacy of teaching notes and rhythms on a daily basis becomes such a, I think, a terror to the profession, that it's a trap that everybody falls into. And I mean, myself included at times. And so, if our default is always to empower the students, especially front loaded, like early on in the year, I probably spend half of every choir class period teaching voice for,
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, maybe a month, two,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, right?
You're talking about in general. In general, that's what you do when you
Yeah,
start. Yeah.
just in general. Like that's so they know the whys, they know the hows, and then you tell them the whats. Like we're helping them make the craft decisions. Like that's our job, is to teach them the craft. So like we're saying, do this here, do that there, do this here, do that there. And because they have the context of the whys and the hows, they can do the whats. And if something isn't working, you can just explain to them, or you can just show them, or have, do one of the exercises that you've practiced. Hey, let's raise our larynx here. Hey, let's do that whole passage on yeah, whatever. And they know why you're doing it. And I don't know, I find especially with this generation of students, they want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they'll have fun once or twice, but after a while they're like, why is Dr. Frizzell always having us do on, right? Like,
Yeah.
but if they know the whys, then it develops like a deeper layer of trust that they have in the process that you're leading them through, and they also just feel more empowered as singers.
Yeah. And just for clarity, especially for our audience, so when they're, let's say they're singing an ah vowel, and when you ask them to raise their larynx, what happens to the sound?
Well, you want to try it?
Let's do it.
Do an ah vowel with a low larynx position. Low
Ah,
larynx.
ah, ah. That's a low larynx position for me.
Ah, ah,
Ah,
ah.
ah. Yeah. Now you want me to raise
All
it?
right. And you raise it.
Okay. Ah. That's what happens.
Yeah, it's hard to do it also without affecting tongue position too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that. Like the whole thing changes. For me, it's like, oh, like everything moves, right? It's a wild combination of things,
So,
but
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, I have a hard time because the muscles are so coordinated at this point. I have a hard time separating. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm gonna raise my larynx, I'm also gonna like change my vowel shape. I'm gonna change my tongue position a little bit, like elevate the tongue, to activate more of the nasal and sinus registers. I don't know. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, well, it was interesting when you were showing the example, and I think it has a lot to do with what you just said. Like you're already like pretty naturally coordinated, and what you're gonna do is gonna be coordinated from the get go. So when you started with a low larynx position, to my ear, it just sounded like, okay, that's trying to show like a darker color of sound. When your larynx went up, it just sounded more balanced and more even and more like, I don't know. That actually, to my ear, it actually sounds more bel canto.
Yeah. And it's going to be different for every singer, slightly, right?
Hmm.
I think, again, the important thing is like going through exercises and warm-ups on a daily basis that allows them to explore the full range of the larynx. It allows them to explore the full range of different resonating, areas of their face, and to kind of see what kind of sounds they can make. Like play around with your voice all the time. And of course, that goes part and parcel with creating an environment in which students feel very comfortable and safe to make silly sounds and be ridiculous and do things that don't seem like that they would sound good right away. One of the things that I do every single day of the year, 180 days a year, is they have to make a crazy sound and then everybody else has to make it. And at first, like especially with like the less experienced choirs, I'll be like, Danny, crazy sound. And Danny is like a first year freshman boy whose voice is, in like stage 2 or something. And he's like, whoa. And everybody's like, whoa. Right. But then we laugh. Right. And then like I'll call on like a 12th grader, who's in there because they had a schedule conflict. And the 12th grader's like, "Ah!" And then they all do, "Ah!" And I'm like, awesome. Right. And then like you do that over time and they develop a little bit of confidence, and by the end of the year like everybody's like making the most ridiculous sounds and doing all kinds of stuff. And I mean just small things like that to create that environment in which students have no fear about exploring their voice in the most flexible and explorative way.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, and,
I feel like
that's it right there.
I feel like we discovered that in the last episode. Embrace the crack. So
True
yeah.
that. So one more technical question for you. So let's say you are working with a contemporary pop a cappella group, and let's say they sounded very choral, and you wanted to switch the choral sound to more of a contemporary sound that's more appropriate for the music. You have one exercise to do, one like thing that you can do to make that happen. What are you doing with that group?
How do you do it in one rehearsal?
I could do it. I could do it like let's do like 5 minutes, right? Or like
Oh
10
wow,
minutes.
he's like, nah, I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We're good.
So for most people, if I don't have to teach the whys and the hows and you just want the what to happen, I can use a trick. So the trick would be like a nya or a nye sound, right? And I have them change all the words to that. Because it's almost impossible to do that sound without raising the larynx, without using forward resonance, without sloping the tongue, right? Without doing all the things that you need to do to create like a healthy belt chest voice placement. And even if you haven't done it a lot, I mean, try singing with a low larynx. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I try it like a low larynx, but do like a yeah.
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 Yeah, you can do it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to go
Yeah.
nya. You
Yeah.
almost have to go
Yeah.
nya
Yeah.
or nya.
Some
You
vowel
can't
changing.
go
Yeah.
you can't go
Yeah.
nya.
Yeah.
Right? The vowel is eh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like almost like Bastin, like
Bastard.
pack the car, right?
Harvard yards.
And have it, yeah, that's right. So like I'll have them do that, and if they're like a shy group, I'll do some like Bostonian accent kind of things, or New York work sometimes too, or whatever. But like really, whatever tends to connect with them from a cultural understanding perspective, and then we use that voice and we sing, and I'm like, I want you to do the most ridiculous thing. I want you to sing it as yeah and bright and whatever as you possibly can. And usually with some cajoling, I can get them to like really buy into that and they'll laugh and whatever. But then like it suddenly like starts to sound pretty good. If you have a soloist who's like pretty talented, but like they're also kind of singing choral and you get them to do it in front of everybody, I can like they'll have a breakthrough in like 30 seconds on one phrase and everybody gets so excited and pumped up. I've used this trick, I don't know, thousands of times. I'm giving away all my secrets, but like it works every single time. Everyone gets so pumped and then they'll all be bought in and they'll all try it. So I've used that so many times. That's what I would use if you gave me a group that sang really well chorally, but you were like, make them actually sound like a pop a cappella group. I would
And
do
you're
that.
just sneaking laryngeal tilt a little higher is what you're doing.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Making the tongue is going to slope, the larynx is going to tilt a little bit more, the vowel is going to place more forward. Yeah, all the things that you need for a healthy sound in that style is, kind of just tricked into happening.
Okay, one more acapella question. Okay, so like as an audio guru, the sound of or like running sound for an acapella group. What details like mic assignments and effects presets and stuff like that make engineers love you and keep the group's sonic identity intact on show day? Big
Ooh,
question.
that's a big question, Blake. Okay. Um,
So does that mean basically what are you going to tell the guy to
Yeah.
do?
yeah. Okay, so when I go in, occasionally I'm like at an Allstate or something where there's a union sound guy who will do anything you ask, but they know nothing about how to make an acapella group sound good, right? So this is the scenario, right? So I had this scenario actually happen. So I said in advance, okay, I know this sounds crazy. I need a bass guitar pedal. Like I need like an octave pedal for a guitar. I said if you don't have one, I'll bring mine, and I did. Um, I said this bass, we're gonna low pass this bass just like you would a bass guitar. So I want you to treat this just like a bass guitar on from the EQ side. And they're like, okay, I know how to do that. It's like, great. This is not a voice anymore. This is a bass guitar. Cool. Got it. There's only one guy. Okay, sweet. I said then you're gonna have your solo voice. You're gonna EQ them just like you would any other soloist. Okay, find the sweet spots. Cut the stuff that needs to be cut. Right, cut the frequencies. Every sound guy knows how to do that. Right, cut.
Yeah.
It's mainly EQ is mainly about what to cut more than what to add. So, in my experience, live at least. So, like, find that, do it. Okay, great. Now, everybody else, you're going to do a similar process for them, and you're just going to try to make sure that there's nothing that's sticking out sonically, like tonally, as you're EQing them. So, we're going to EQ each singer one at a time as if they were the soloist as well, and just cut any offending frequencies out. So, I just have them line check each singer. Okay. So once we've done that, if there's a vocal percussionist, which there most of the time is, I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do with them. We're going to split the vocal percussion. So what is that line? That's mic 12. Cool. Let's split mic 12. Can it be channels 12 and 13? Can we send it to both? Awesome. Let's send it to two different channels. One of them we're going to treat like it's a kick drum. Okay. So we're going to low pass that. All right, so low pass it, great. Treat it like a kick drum. EQ it just like you would the mics that you put on a kick. Great, got it. Now, the other one, you're going to high pass, and we're going to find the frequencies. We're going to boost the frequencies of the snare. We're going to have him do a snare and, this hi-hat, and we're going to try to find those, and we're going to cut everything else. And so he's like, okay, cool, got it, sweet. All right. Then I'll have like the bass and the VP both do their sounds or whatever and kind of tweak things. And because I have them treating them like instruments and they understand instruments and they know how to, EQ and mix for instruments, they're like, oh, sweet. Okay, I understand how this works. Then you start to put in the voices. And for the voices, they're usually I just tell them like take whatever you think you would normally put a singer at in terms of like how loud they are and cut it by like 50%.
Oh.
From a default. And I said then the loudest thing there is going to be your soloist, followed by your VP and your bass, and then the other voices. And then you can play around with it from there. But I was like, that's going to get you a good starting point for an a cappella group to sound at least decent. Most of the time, when a cappella groups sound terrible on sound, it's because very little to none of that is happening from an EQ perspective. And so, without that, I mean, you'd have absolutely no clarity of texture.
That answer
That makes a
was
lot of sense.
gold.
I know.
That was beautiful. I
That was like systematic.
got chills.
How do you smoke it
It-
out?
it,
One at a time.
It made me.
That's a weird way to put it.
It made me kind of cry a little bit. Like it. You were like so animated about answering that question too, so I can see like how passionate you are about. Because I know a lot of times you will be the one that's mixing back there, but like sometimes you don't get that opportunity, and so to literally like dumb everything down or put it into terms that they understand a lot better, like that's genius. I love it. Um, so last question. This doesn't have to do with anything technique wise or uh, sound wise, but I'm selfishly asking this question because I'm going to take on a new leadership role with MCDA. In your opinion, what is something that state ACDA chapters can do to support and promote contemporary a cappella?
All right. So great question. ACDA, I think they're really starting to take a cappella seriously now as a quality supplemental complementary teaching tool for choir directors.
Yeah.
Um, 10 years ago, that was not the case. And that's why we started the AEA like in 2013. So that was over 10 years ago. Um, Very different now. And I mean, there are thousands of high school choir or high school a cappella groups. Whereas I think when we started, I think I like tried to find every single one, and I think there were like 45.
Oh my
No
gosh.
joke.
Wow.
Wow.
In 2010, there were like 45.
Like
So
as far as high
we're
school groups or just like all groups?
yes,
High school groups. Okay, I
high
was about
school
to
groups.
say.
There were a lot of college groups,
Yeah.
a lot of college groups, but like high school groups, there were like 45. Like there'd be a new one that would come up, and we'd all know about it. We're like, dude, did you hear about the group in North Carolina? There's a group in North Carolina. A
One
group in North Carolina? Yeah, dude, group in North Carolina. It
and
was like that.
Pitch Perfect came out around like
12, right?
2010. No, it was like 2012, 2013. Pentatonic Sing Off was like 2011. So yeah, I bet some of the boom kind of correlated with that too.
It did, and I mean that's part of why like that timing with the AEA, it was like, hey, we need this now. Like now is the time. People need these resources. Like we need to get out there. So it's a very different time. So we basically what 100x'd in
Yeah.
10 years in terms of the size of the market for this. And they have wisely figured this out. My friend Rob Dietz, he is he's been the national chair R&R for contemporary commercial music, which is also a great step that ACA took in sort of making that its own thing. I think before it was either grouped in with show choir or vocal jazz for a while, and those are just very different styles and types of singing.
I feel like
So
that's how MCDA is right now. I think it's grouped in with show choir,
yeah,
which so maybe that's one of the first steps is separate them.
I mean, here's the thing, like it doesn't take much to give something its own area, right? You need like a person to be in charge of it, but it doesn't really cost any money. Um, it's so different. Like you would never tell barber shoppers that they're in the same category as vocal jazz,
Yeah.
right? Even though like you could classify some of the music that both sing as popular music, you couldn't listen to a show choir and approach it in any pedagogical way that's similar to a vocal jazz group or a contemporary a cappella group. So to me, I think that maybe a first step is doing that, is creating its own R&R area. If your state doesn't have it, one of the most successful things I've seen states do, Mississippi does this. I'm sure there are other states that do it as well. Is if you've got somebody that's really into contemporary a cappella and is sort of a leadership person, create some kind of event that is just for contemporary a cappella where there's like a low barrier to entry, the a low cost, maybe it's hosted at somebody's school, maybe the state ACA chapter helps to supplement the budget in some way or helps to bring in the clinician. Those are really always super successful. And in fact, I have seen this happen in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. I mean, places that have big a cappella scenes now at the high school level, and they didn't a few years ago. They started like with one event,
Yeah.
basically. So I think the ACDA state chapter could create some kind of event where you just bring in one clinician. That one clinician can work with groups. They can do some kind of mass big choir with everybody singing together, give everybody some stage time, teach everybody how to do the mics. Maybe there's a session where you show all the teachers, like, here's how to successfully have a performance on microphones. Here's how to rehearse on mics. Here's what's different. Just answer some of those basic questions that people tend to have,
Yeah.
because that's all it tends to be for most people. Like most choir directors are pretty darn competent at teaching singing and teaching choir. And there are just a few stylistic differences and a few differences in approach that you take for contemporary a cappella. and you guys know that as well as anyone. So I think just some creating opportunities to remove those barriers for people and clarify some of those issues, I think then gives the opportunity for them to go, oh, you know what? I think we could do this.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, JD, thank you so much for coming back on. First two-timer. You are a gem, and we appreciate everything that you do for the contemporary a cappella world and just the choral world in general. I hear my almost 10-month crying upstairs, so that's probably the cue to end the episode. Daddy. It's about her nap time.
Or it's my chiropractor.
Or,
Come to me.
Yeah, your
You have an
chiropractor appointment. But we appreciate you so much. You talked about your website and how people can purchase that piece. What was it called again? You Are? Is that what it was called?
You Are.
Yeah. So what's your website?
Yeah. It's jdfrizzell.net.
Cool.
2 Z's, 2 L's. .net because the .com got stolen. It's a whole long story.
Whoa, JD Frizzell got the .com got stolen? Like that specific one?
Somebody
From the other JD Frizzell?
Somebody wanted you to.
No, it's like
Somebody wanted to be you.
It was like hacked by like a Chinese. It's like JD Frizzell Tiger Composer something else, and then like you can buy Cialis on it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's amazing. But don't go to that one. Go to jdfrizzell.net if you're.
What if we go to
seriously
JD Frizzell and it's like a bunch of like offhanded like clown pictures of JD or something like that? That would be interesting from his previous career.
I think our listeners will now for sure be visiting your website because they are just intrigued by what they might find.
I love that we've created that mystery. Great, go.
You're gonna see like in your statistics or analytics, the amount of people that have visited your page is just gonna skyrocket because they think there's gonna be clowns.
I love that. Think all you want.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate you, and we both appreciate you, and thank you for, you know, I don't have a contemporary pop a cappella group. Danny does, and you know his group is very successful, and I know he salivates every time he hears your answers to all of his questions.
I wanted him to come back for that reason. I was like, it's for the audience, but really, we know what it's for.
It's for you.
It's for me.
and for me too. I enjoy hearing that. Like, I feel like we have similar techie brains.
Well, he's a unique representative that simultaneously really represents the choral profession, and then at the same time represents contemporary a cappella. So I think he's the bridge, right? So you find a lot of maybe prominent contemporary a cappella composers or people that do these big clinics, but he's in the field every day in the music education field, so he's the right guy to explain what the difference is.
Yeah, you the man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for giving me the platform and let me share, and for doing this podcast. You're doing an awesome job. It's a really great show.
Well, thanks. We like it. It's fun. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of the Choir Guys podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to the Choir Guys channel so you can know when new episodes are coming out. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Once again, the Choir Guys is brought to you by Endeavor Music Publishing. Make sure to browse their website before programming music for your next concert.
You can follow the show on all social media at the Choir Guys Pod to catch bonus content throughout the week. Special shout out to everyone that follows us on Facebook. We hit 1,000 likes this week. Mm-hmm. Wow, the 1K looks nice. I like the letter K. My wife's name is Caitlin. Feel free to message us through these platforms if you want to hear us talk about something specific on the show.
Thanks again to JD Frizzell for joining us on the podcast once again. Make sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode. We have 5 guests joining our podcast over the next couple of months. That's right, I said 5 guests.
Wow.
And we know you will enjoy these episodes. Click the bell on YouTube or follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you can know when those episodes drop.
Last summer, we didn't record at all. This summer, we're spending our entire summer doing this podcast.
We got the wormfish episode.
We did have the fish episode and the basketball
battle
episode that we won't talk about. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Goodbye.